After 25 years in the green industry, I've watched homeowners make the single same expensive mistake every single summer. They spend $200 or $300 at the garden center every single May. Beautiful flowers, everything looks great. And by August, in the middle of a heat wave or a dry stretch, every plant is crispy, is cooked, is done. Most of what gets marketed at the big box stores are annuals, plants that need constant watering, constant attention. You don't water them for a week in July and you're starting over. But there's a different category of plants that a lot of homeowners never tap into, perennials. And typically, those perennials survive heat and drought stress way better than annuals. Some of them can even go 3 or 4 weeks without water and even look better for doing so. These are plants that once established in your landscape, you barely have to think about. Today I'm giving you 10 drought-tolerant perennials that I have used over and over again in residential landscapes. These are not garden center gimmicks, these are proven performers. Let's get into it. Number 1 on our list is a little bit past bloom here in late July in Zone 8A in North Alabama, but this is lavender, or Lavender angustifolia. And if you've never grown lavender before, there's something you need to understand about it. Lavender does not want rich soil. It does not want a lot of water. It thrives in rocky, poor soils of the Mediterranean coast, places where it barely rains from June through September. That is the environment the plant is adapted to. I've had clients tell me that their lavender died, and 9 times out of 10, when I go look at the site, the plant is in amended, fertile garden soil, and we're watering it twice a week. Lavender can literally be killed with kindness. Lavender needs lean soils, excellent drainage, and the more sun, the better. You give it those 3 things, and this plant will laugh at drought. One of the things I like most about lavender is its fragrance. I've had clients tell me that they walk outside the front door just to smell their lavender, and that's the type of emotional connection I want clients to have with any landscape. My go-to varieties are Hidcoat for a compact habit and Phenomenal in zones 4 through 9 for superior winter hardiness. Number 2 on our list is this purple flower here. This is Russian sage. And in my opinion, it does not get the credit that it deserves. Russian sage is a powerhouse, silver stems, airy blue-purple flower spikes that hold from late June all the way into September. It is deer resistant and drought resistant, and it performs in full sun, poor soil, and all kind of heat that would wilt most landscape plants. Here's what I really love about Russian sage, the texture contrast that it creates with more bolder shaped plants. Plant it with daylilies or coneflowers or black-eyed Susans, and you'll have a combination that looks professionally designed. USDA zones 4 through 9, and once it goes dormant in the winter, you can cut it back to about 6 inches, and it will come back bigger and fuller the next spring. Number 3 on our list is black-eyed Susan from the genus Rudbeckia, and this is a plant that I find myself coming back to time and time again in drought situations. Black-eyed Susan is a native plant. It evolved on the prairies and meadows of North America where summer heat is intense and rain is unpredictable. That origin matters because it means the root system on this plant is built for drought. You're not fighting with nature's preferences, you are working with them. One of the things that I really enjoy about Black-eyed Susan is its bloom period. It blooms from midsummer into early fall. So when most perennials are beginning to fade away, Black-eyed Susan is just getting started. That golden yellow flower with dark center is one of the most recognizable, cheerful combinations in the landscape, and it does all that during the hottest, driest stretch of the year. Oftentimes, Black-eyed Susan is the plant that looks most alive during the month of August. Number 4 on our list is a plant that is the last example that I have in my landscape for reasons that we'll talk about here in a second. But this is Echinacea purpurea, or the purple coneflower. Just like with black-eyed Susans, echinaceas are native to the prairies of North America. And that alone should tell you everything you should need to know about drought tolerance. The prairies of the Midwest can go weeks without rain in the summer, and echinacea loves those conditions. What sets echinacea apart is its root system. The plant develops a deep taproot over time that allows it to pull moisture from way below the ground. And the science backs this up. Deep-rooted natives are dramatically more drought tolerant than shallow-rooted annuals, and there is no comparison. Full sun, good drainage, and once established, you essentially can leave this plant alone. One thing that I do want to point out to you is a virus that echinacea can get called yellow. If your flowers on your echinacea look like this, like there's green leaves growing out of the top of your flower, chances are you have yellow. And unfortunately for me, this is a soil-borne virus that there is no cure for. This is my last echinacea in my garden, and for now, I will not be able to plant any more. If you haven't hit the like button yet, please consider doing so. I put out a video once a week based on 25 years of real-world green industry experience. Also consider subscribing or becoming a member to the channel. Members receive exclusive perks when they join. Now let's get back into it. Number 5 on our list is this little guy here that is done blooming for me in Zone 8A in North Alabama in late July. But this is Yarrow from the genus Echinacea. Now I want to be honest with you about Yarrow. Yarrow is not a glamorous plant. It does not have the showiness of a peony or drama of an ornamental grass. But for raw, unapologetic performance in drought conditions, nothing on this list can beat it. I have seen Yarrow growing in gravel, in road cuts, in compacted, dry, south-facing slopes where nothing else would survive. And here's the science behind it. Those ferny, finely divided foliage is not accidental. Plants that have evolved in dry environments often develop fine divided leaves to reduce their surface area and to slow water loss. One honest note about Yarrow: it can spread in fertile soils. Plant it where you want a mass and not a single specimen. Number 6 is currently getting overpowered by these huge dragon-winged begonias beside it. But this is blanket flower from the genus Gaillardia. And Gaillardia may be the most heat-tolerant and drought-tolerant plant on the entire list. It simply does not get the attention it deserves. Gaillardia blooms from early summer all the way through first frost, one of the longest blooming seasons of any perennial in the industry. And the water requirements? Well, I've had clients call me completely panicked after a month without rain, and the blanket flower is sitting there looking absolutely perfect. Full sun, and it must have well-drained soils. I want to be very precise here because that matters. Gaillardia will not tolerate wet feet under any circumstances. But if you have a hot, dry, sunny spot that's killing everything, plant blanket flower there. It will thrive precisely where other plants will fail. For compact varieties, plant Arizona Sun or Goblin like you see here. For more vigorous cultivars, consider Mesa Red and Mesa Yellow. Number 7 on our list is Salvia, and I prefer the cultivar that you see here, May Night. And in my opinion, Salvia is one of the most underutilized drought-tolerant plants in the landscape. Now, Salvia has a long history of drought adaptation. It belongs to the same family as lavender, rosemary, and Russian sage. I like those plants because they are adapted to dry Mediterranean type style climates where hot summers and minimal summer rain are simply the norm. The aromatic foliage that you smell when you brush against it, that is no coincidence. Those are aromatic compounds in the leaves that actually help the plant regulate temperature and reduce moisture loss through leaf surface area. Here's what I really love about Salvia is its bloom sequence. The first flush comes in late spring, dense violet purple spikes that are absolutely electric in the landscape. Cut it back to about a third after the first bloom and the plant fires right back with the second, sometimes third flush of flowers through summer into fall. Another thing that I really love about Salvia is this is an absolute pollinator attractor. As you can see here, the bumblebees absolutely love this plant. In my opinion, Salvia is one of the top pollinator plants in the perennial world. I've watched bumblebees work a stand of May Night Salvia for an hour straight. If you care about pollinators, and I know you do, Salvia May Night belongs in your landscape. Plant them in full sun, USDA zones 4 through 9, and once established, you do not have to worry about drought conditions with this plant. Number 8 on our list is about played out for me here in North Alabama in late July in Zone 8A, but this is Blazing Star from the genus Liatris. Liatris is another native prairie plant, and it brings something to the landscape that almost nothing else does: strong vertical interest in midsummer when the garden needs it most. Those purple flower spikes, they bloom from the top down, which is unusual and genuinely eye-catching. But from a drought-tolerant standpoint, what matters the most is the corm, the underground storage structure. Liatris stores energy and moisture in that corm, which is what allows it to push through dry conditions that would otherwise stress shallow-rooted plants. Plant Liatris in full sun, well-drained to moderately drained soils, and it is an excellent pollinator attractor plant. USDA zones 3 through 9 and essentially zero maintenance once established. Number 9 on our list is red hot poker from the genus Nephofia. And if you want to talk about a plant that stops people in their tracks, this plant is it. Red hot poker is native to the dry grasslands and rocky slopes of South Africa. And I want you to think about what that means for a moment. South Africa's Eastern Cape. It has intense summer heat, well-drained soils, and rainfall that is very unpredictable. This plant did not develop in a lush, well-watered garden. It developed in conditions that would stress most landscape plants to the breaking point. And this is what is interesting about red hot poker. Those strap-like arching leaves are not just ornamental, they are functional. They channel rainfall and dew directly down towards the plant's root zone, concentrating whatever moisture is available right to where the plant needs it. That is a drought survival mechanism built into the plant's physical structure. The flower display is extraordinary, torchlight spikes that rise 3, sometimes 4 feet tall, with cultivars ranging from orange, red, and yellow flowers. Bloom period begins in late spring and continues through midsummer, depending on the variety. As you can see here in late July in North Alabama, these are on the tail end of their bloom cycle, and the hummingbirds will find them every single time. Well-drained soil for red hot poker is non-negotiable. If you plant red hot poker in wet soils, eventually the roots will rot. USDA zones 5 through 9, and once established, you can leave this one alone. And number 10 on our list is a plant that puts on its main show in late summer going into fall, and that is sedum, and I prefer the cultivar Autumn Joy. Sedum is a succulent, which means it stores water directly in its thick, fleshy leaves and stems. Drought tolerance is built into the plant's fundamental biology. The seasonal timeline is outstanding. Fleshy green rosettes emerge in spring. Pink flower clusters appear in August. Copper and bronze tones deepen through October and November. And when dried, the seed heads provide structure and bird interest all winter long. Plant sedum in full sun, well-drained soils, and a pro tip for you, do not over-fertilize sedums. If you over-fertilize sedums, they'll get leggy and fall over on you. Keep the soil lean where you plant sedums. In those conditions, sedums will thrive. There you have it, 10 drought-tolerant perennials that will survive the toughest of summers. So the next time that you're in the garden center, consider not buying annuals that are going to cook by mid-July, and instead look at perennials that are drought-tolerant and also come back year after year. Just a quick reminder before I go, every single plant on this list, you will need to water for the first year until it's established. But once those roots are established and the drought tolerance kicks in, you can kick back and enjoy the flower show. Speaking of show, here's a blooper I had while filming this episode. Hummingbird. Hey, buddy. I about got popped in the head by a hummingbird. He didn't see me. He was on the other side of this lantana. Guys, as always, thanks for watching The Plant Doctor. And until next time, happy gardening.